So today I'm gonna show you how to color grade your iPhone footage. We're gonna go through 3 simple steps and I'm gonna show you which application to utilize and how to get the best results. Without any further ado, let's get started. First, let's start with the application that we're gonna need to download in order to do the color grading. The application that we're gonna utilize today is called DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve is an application that is utilized by the professionals in the market when doing color grading for videos and professional work. But don't get afraid by that. The application is pretty simple to utilize. Come with me and I'll show you how to do it. So the first thing that you're gonna do once the application is installed is to create a new project. Let's say color grading. So the application looks like this. If you're used to utilize something like Final Cut or Adobe Premiere, it's not that different from those applications. However, if you see here at the bottom, you're gonna see that you have different pages. Now the difference between this application and the other applications is that everything is centralized into dedicated pages. So let's say that if you are doing editing, you have the page that is dedicated for editing, and every options related to editing, it will be available in this page. Now, if you want to do color grading, it's not in the edit tab. You need to go to the color grading tab where you're gonna have a lot of options only dedicated to the color grading. So let's start from the beginning and let's load some media so we can start the color grading process. So when you click here in media, you're gonna be presented with all the storage options that you have in your computer. Now, I have created already a folder with the files that we're gonna utilize for color grading. So once you are in this page, you need to do the following. You need to select the shots that you want to color grade, then you need to drag them to the media pool. Now both files were added here to the media pool. Now we need to jump into the cut tabs and we need to drag those files to the timeline. Okay, so once you have added the files into the timeline, now it's time to click on the color page so we can start our color grading. DaVinci Resolve, differently from Final Cut, it's basically a node-based software. So instead of adding layers in the timeline like you would do in Adobe Premiere or in Final Cut, you will be creating nodes. So each node has the capability of concentrating the adjustment in isolation. So it will help us to differentiate the types of adjustments that you want to do. I recommend to keep at minimum 3 or 4 nodes. Okay, you can either right click and click to add a node or do option S and it will create a node. So I'm gonna create a few nodes here. So in between the 3rd node and the 4th node, I'm gonna add a splitter here. Okay, now that we have our base node tree in place, let's start adding the names to what we're gonna do to each of the nodes. This one we're gonna call it exposure. Pop. This one we're gonna call it outside. And this one we're gonna call it skin. And this one we're gonna call it global adjustment. It works like this. Every adjustment that goes into the nodes, they come on top of the other. Okay, so if you adjust the exposure, it will impact the layers that comes after it. So that's why we need to follow this certain order, okay? So if you're gonna do some adjustments in the skin tones and also the outside colors, it's recommendable that you first adjust the exposure to the levels that you want to be, okay? Pop is about getting more contrast and less contrast, and then you work on the colors, okay? And final adjustments, it's for final touches. Let's say that you want to increase the sharpness or reduce the sharpness, you can do in the global adjustments. Okay, so this is our basic structure that we need to utilize to do some color grading. You're gonna see here at the bottom that you have a vector scope. Okay, if it's not showing like this yet when you install the application, you can click here and you can select the type of the graph that you want to see. Okay, you have parade, you have waveform, and then you have vector scope. Okay, I like to work with 2. Okay, I like to work with the vector scope and then the waveform, because then I can keep an eye on my skin tones and the color levels, but also on the luminance levels, okay, which is the brightness of the video. Okay, so I'll click here to expand. So usually when the application is first installed, it looks like this. Okay, I like to make it a little bit bigger so I can see what is going on with the colors. And I also like to add the skin tone line indicator. Okay, so this is one of the first things that we need to do. And also on the waveform, I like to select Y. Okay, because in Y it gives me the view of the luminance, but also a little bit the colors, so I can have both views into one simple graph. Now on the left side you have your color wheels. You have the color wheels, which brings the lift, gamma and gain, and the offset. Now if you click here, there are other options as well and other wheels. You have shadow, middle tone and highlights. Now let's go to the first node. So first node is where we're gonna change and adjust the exposure. The iPhone itself always tries to capture the image in the best exposure possible. However, there might be situations that you want to change the exposure to adjust the image to your taste. Let's see how we read this. You see here that you have the waveform, right? Then you have from 0 until 100, and this is your level of luminance. Everything that is close to 100 is pure white, okay? And everything that is close to 0, it's close to pure black. And this is reading my video from left to right. So you see that this area here is mostly this area here in the video, okay? And this right side here is this area in the video. Myself, I am here in the middle, and you can see that the color is matching the skin tone. Now let's say that I want to make this picture a little bit darker, okay, especially on my jacket and in other areas. So the first thing that I want to do is to check the shadow. Okay, so you go here to the left panel and you can drag the wheel and start dragging to the left. You see how it changes? It's affecting the darker areas, and see how it affects here on the bottom of the chart. Okay, so you can do by changing the shadows. Now changing the shadows, it is changing only a portion of the image, the darker areas, you see? But it's not affecting in a way that I want to adjust, which is bringing the overall darkness of the image. Okay, now if I click in the other, you have the lift. Okay, now in the lift, let's do the same thing. You see in the lift that if I drag to the left, it's bringing the more of the overall of the image towards to a darker tones. So let's say that I'm happy like that. One thing that you need to learn is that you can do Shift and D to show before and after. Okay, so this is before and this is after, and you see that the colors, they started already to pop. They started to look more vivid than before. Now you see that the skin tones, because it's very well lit, it's sitting almost close to the 80% luminance. Sometimes it can look a little bit too much. Now what you can do, you can go to the gamma and you can drag a little bit down. And that will affect overall, but also the skin tone. So the next node is where we're gonna control the contrast. I already feel that this image is very good with the contrast level. However, if you want to add or remove contrast, you can do it here. There is an option here called contrast, close to the color wheels. Now you can click on it and you can drag and drop and you can adjust the contrast. You see? Now, let's say that I want to make it a little bit less contrast. Okay, let's say like this. Now you see how it affects the highlights and it affects the overall image, right? So this is the image. Now if you do before and after, you're gonna see that I have a little bit of a darker image now overall. Now it's my preference. Now it's up to you. If you like more brighter image, you can play with the exposure and you can play with the contrast and adjust this to your taste. Now let's move to the interesting part, which is playing with the colors. Now playing with the colors, it's more like an artistic choice. The image from the iPhone is already pretty much natural. Now when you are utilizing an application like this, you are utilizing from an angle that you want to play with colors. That's why it's called color grading. You are on it to change things, color of objects or the entire mood of the scene, and you can play with it. Now the way we're gonna do is that we're gonna isolate, and this is the right way, by the way. We're gonna isolate the subject or the hero from the remaining of the shot. Okay, So I'm gonna isolate all my skin from the remaining of the shot so I can play with both without affecting the skin tones. Because you know, the problem when you utilize a LUT or filters is that it applies to the entire image. So you get a LUT and you install it and then you try to apply to your footage, then most likely changing the entire image. And sometimes it doesn't look that good, okay? So this is how the professionals they do. They separate the skin tones from the rest and they make sure that the skin tones remains natural. Now, how can we select the skin tones only? Okay, so this is the interesting part. DaVinci Resolve has a tool that is very, very nice. You see here, there is this button called qualifier. So DaVinci Resolve has the option to utilize the qualifier to select any type of color that you want. Okay, but before we utilizing that, let's first enable this button here, which will highlight to us the areas that we are selecting. Okay, so it's important to click on this button to see what we are selecting. Now, once we click on that, then you can click on the qualifier tool, and then with the qualifier you can select your skin. Okay, now you see that depending on the area that you click, it will select different things. So if you click here, for example, it's grabbing some parts of the buildings and some things on the background. So ideally we want pure isolation, but sometimes it's not that possible and it's okay. Okay, but in this case I will try to do my best to get the most isolation as possible. Okay, so let's see. I'm happy with this. I see that this is grabbing very good, and you can drag and drop and keep drag and drop like that, and it will help you to select the skin tone. Now look at the vector scope. You're gonna see that the iPhone is already doing a good job in keeping the skin tones close to the skin tone line. Okay, however, you're gonna see that whatever comes in this side here, it's towards the green. Okay, and whatever comes towards this area, it's towards to the red and magenta. Okay, now the skin color, the skin tone color sits in the middle, somewhere in the middle. But I do see that the iPhone, it's bringing my skin tone more closer to the green side and yellow side, which I don't like too much. So that's why I like to do color grade in the first place. I like to adjust the skin tones to sit a little bit closer to the warmer side, and that's what we're gonna do. Okay, now, okay, so now that we have selected the skin, we can start playing with the colors. Okay, now for playing with the colors, my advice is to use the other tool which is sitting in the middle, which is the graph here, color bars. Okay, if you click on the color bars, now that we have the skin tone selected, then it's easier to go and change things. You have here lift, gamma, gain and offset. Okay, I like to play with them all to check what is going on in the picture, and also checking how it's affecting my vector scope. You know what, I feel that my skin tone, it's a little bit too green, and looking to the graph I can confirm that it's a little bit too green to my taste. So what I can do, I can come here to the gain bar and I can reduce the green a little bit, and you see that the skin tone now moved from this side towards the other side. I'm gonna remove this so you can see what is going on. Let me just disable and enable this skin tone node. You see this is previous and this is after. Now this is looking much better to my taste. Okay, so the skin tone is not so green or yellow, and sitting to my taste a little bit in a more natural color. I look more like that, by the way. I'm not so green. I'm not like a hook. Okay, so I'm gonna enable this again, and I'm gonna show you like a more extreme case. Okay, what you can do if you go here and let's say that you remove a lot of the green. Look what happens. You see that change completely the color of the skin. You see here on the vector scope, which is capturing only what is selected, and you see that everything it's moving towards magenta. Okay, now if I disable this this option here, you're gonna see that it changed only the color of my skin, and it hasn't changed the background. So this is why it's important to use this type of node tree, where you can separate what is being changed from the skin tone from what is being changed from the outside. Okay, so skin tone, we're gonna of course do some adjustments to keep it in the way that we like, but we also gonna change on the outside. Okay, now let me go back here. Let me go back to the previous, how it was before. Okay, and let me enable this. Okay, so look, now my skin tone is sitting close to the skin tone line, but a little bit warmer, but it's okay. I'm okay with that. If you feel that you are not happy with the selection and you still feel that there are some areas creeping into the skin tone, you can play with the bars here to do some fine tuning. So let's say that this area here, it's affecting my image in a way that is not color grading the way I want, because it's excluding from my selection. Now I can play with this part to move it a little bit, and you're gonna see that, okay, now I don't have the gray here, but also it's grabbing something from my background. Okay, so I can play with the other areas as well to kind of isolate it better. Okay, let's see, this is okay. Let's see. Excellent. Now, one thing that you can utilize is the blur radius. Okay, blur radius, it helps to blend a little bit, so the changes are not so drastic. So if you select blur radius and you drag and drop to the right, you're gonna see that it's a little bit better blended. And let's see the final result with the skin. Before I was green and yellow, now I am a little bit more towards red. Now, one thing that is important is that if you are trying to achieve a teal and orange look, this is how you do it properly. So the skin, you can bring it towards the orange, and the outside, you're gonna bring it towards the teal. Okay, so another thing that I like to do is utilizing here the color warper. And with the color warper, I can do more changes to all the colors involved in my skin. You see, if I drag and drop here, you see that at the bottom, in the spider web, in the middle, you see where those areas are being selected. Okay, so one thing that I like to do is to bring this further away from the green. Okay, and close it a little bit. So moving away from the green and moving away from the magenta. Okay, now you're gonna see that my skin tone is a little bit flat now. So before I had many different colors all over the place in my face, and now I have a more flat line, which means I have more flat colors. Okay, it helps for people that have, like myself, some different pigmentation in the skin. Okay, some people, they have amazing and perfect skin tones. Now I have some pigmentations, so if I do that, I make my skin tone looks a little bit more even in the image. Okay, so let's do before and after so you can see what I'm talking about. So more natural, and now I'm gonna do before and after, and you're gonna see. This is before, more greener, and you see here the sides, you have seen some pigmentation here. Now with the after. Okay, so it's more cleaner. So this is how we do the skin tone. Now, of course, once you reach the tone that you like, you can play with the saturation. Okay, there are two things that you can utilize to change the saturation. One is the saturation levels, and the other one is color boost. I like to play with both to see which one fits better with the style that I'm looking for. So let's try with saturation first. First, let me enable this so you can see that I'm changing the saturation only of my face. I'm gonna go to an extreme level so you're gonna see. You see, this is affecting only my face. Now I'm gonna revert back. Okay, let's check color boost. You see, both of them are affecting in that way. Now I'm gonna increase a little bit of both. Little bit of saturation and a little bit of color boost. Now I'm more alive terms of color, right? So if you look at before and after, let me disable this again. This is how it looked before, and this is now after. Okay, if you feel that is too much, you can dial back a little bit. I'm gonna keep a little bit extra, so it will be more evident the color grade that we are doing. There's some truck outside making some noise. Every time that I'm trying to make a video, there are noises. Once we are happy with the skin, now we can do some changes in the background. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to select the outside node. Then we're gonna go again to our qualifier tool, and I'm gonna select everything that is in the background. Okay, so I'm gonna do like this, maybe like this. Okay, so it's grabbing most of the things that are in the background. Let's see if I can do better. Okay, so this looks better now. So you see, it's grabbing everything that is in the background with exception of my face and some other stuff here. But again, you can go to the options here and start to play with dials or with the options to be more precise with your selection. Okay, if you see things like this, it means that once you start to change the color, it will not look so good. Okay, you see very hard lines here, so it will affect the color not in a good way. Okay, so what you can do is play with the blur radius a little bit to see if that helps. But before doing that, you can also play with the other bars. Okay, let's say saturation. You see, let's see if I can isolate better. Okay, let's check the luminance. Luminance is okay. Let's do like this. And colors as well. You can drag and drop here to separate the colors, you see? Let's see if I can do like that. And then now I can play with the blur radius. Now you also have here clean black and clean white, and that will help to clean up the image a little bit more. You see here, see in this spot here. Okay, I'm gonna remove the blur radius so it will be easier for you to see. You see clean white. If you drag and drop, it will help to clean up the image. Let's see, clean black. Yeah, clean white. It helps to clean up, and now the blur radius. Now let's apply the blur radius. Okay, so now that we kind of selected the background only, then it's time to do the changes. Now with the background properly selected, you can start to play with the dials and with the options here. Now the best way to get a teal and orange look is again to make the outside navigate towards the teal. And how we can do that? If you go to the lift or to the gamma or to the gain, you have the colors, the color bars here. Now you can play with each one of them to adjust in the way that you like more. But let's start with the lift first. If you remove red, you're gonna see that all the colors, they will start to navigate towards teal. Okay, because it's the opposite. You have the red sitting in this side of the scale or the graph, and your teal will be on the opposite. So if you remove red, you're gonna have more teal in the image. Okay, so let's go to our lift and let's drag this bar down a little bit. Okay, you see here that everything started to go towards teal, isn't it? So the more you drag, the more teal it will be. So there are extreme cases, you see? Now, when it comes to color grading, at least at the beginning, it's nice to do smaller touches. Okay, you don't need to be super drastic, but you do smaller touches, and you can play with the bars to see which one adjusts better the look that you want to achieve. So we remove a little bit of the lift. Now I went back to the original. Let's try with gamma. Let's see how it will apply. So gamma, if we reduce, it will look like that. Let's go back to 0. If you double click, it will go back to 0. Let's try gain. Okay. It also removes and offset. So offset is gonna move the entire thing, okay? So you see here in the vector scope, if you remove the red, it's gonna change the entire thing. While the other ones are more isolated, okay? Either to the shadows or to the brighter areas, okay? Let's remove a little bit red from the lift and let's see how it looks like before and after. I can hold Command and D to disable the node or to enable. You see here that the image was much more warmer in the outside compared to what it is now if I enable the node, okay? And you see that now when I enable the node, the colors are navigating towards more of the teal side. So I still feel that we can do something better with the outside. Let's have a look on the color warper and see what we can do. Okay, let's see if we can select this point here, move it more towards the teal, and let's grab the other as well and do the same. Okay, let's see if we can do like this. And you see how it's affecting here the color in the vector scope, right? You see now that you have a perfect line or almost perfect line going from teal to orange. So that's why it's a teal and orange look. You can see other areas of the image and see where you can change to bring it even more. Okay, let's see. I want more like that. This one looks nice, but I'll bring a little bit more like this. Okay, so this one looks nice. So let's enable and disable to see how it looks like. Okay, so this is before and this is after. Okay, you see here a few changes, right? Look at these colors that they were a little bit blue, very pale blue, and how they look like now once you do the teal and orange. Okay, so it's gonna affect everything that is closer to green and to blue. It will brings it closer to teal, and even wall here and things that are like a concrete, you're gonna see that there is a slight change towards the teal color. Now let's do one thing. Let's disable everything and see before and after how it stands at the moment. If you do Shift D, it will bypass and disable everything. Okay, so this was the original image. So first we started with the exposure and we made the picture look a little bit more contrasty. So the darker areas are a little bit darker and we balanced better the image luminance. The pop, I reduced a little bit of contrast because I wanted a little bit of more flat look. If you want sometimes to get more of a filmic look, sometimes you need to reduce a little bit of the contrast. The images coming from the iPhone, they are very contrasty. So in order to make it more look like a film, then you need to reduce the contrast. Okay, then we change the skin. So I'm going to enable the skin. You see that the skin now, it went from green towards a more orange and kind of a red tone. And then we change the background to more a teal look. Okay, now if I disable everything, this is before. Okay, and look here at the vector scope, and this is after. So guys, that's it. This is how you get the teal and orange look, doing small changes and a few nodes that you can utilize to do a proper color grading. Now, as an extra step, if some of you feel that the iPhone image is too sharp for your taste, you can play with the last node to adjust the sharpness. Okay, so there is an option here in DaVinci Resolve which is this button here, which is where we can change the sharpness. If you click on it, you're gonna see that there is the option radius. Now, if you reduce the radius, it means increasing sharpness. And if you increase the radius, it means reducing the sharpness. Okay? So let's do some extreme exercise so you can have a better understanding of how it works. So I'm gonna select here the radio and I'm gonna drag all the way down. See, this is how it looks like with the extra sharpness. This of course is too much. Now, if you click here, it will reset. And for the iPhone type of footage, I usually like to increase this by 2 or 3 maximum, which will reduce the sharpness to the level that it start to look like a DSLR camera or like a cinema camera. So let's do like 53. Yes. So you see that the image is much more less sharp. It's not out of focus, it's still in focus, but it's less sharp. It's more natural. It's more natural looking. So this is how you do the color grading, and then you change the sharpness. One thing that I forgot to mention, if you're not happy with the black areas of the image looking a little bit too much teal and you want to achieve, let's say, a teal and orange look, however you want still to keep black as pure black, there is one option that you can do to do that. Okay, so again, let's go to the outside node, and if you click here on the curves, it will start like this. Then you can select here the saturation versus saturation. Okay, now this area of the image, it tells that is the saturation level of the darker areas of the image, and on the right side here you're gonna see it's like the saturation levels of the brighter areas of the image. Now you need to put a pivot point here, okay, and then you can grab all the way down this side close to 0. So this, it's gonna make that everything that is brighter, it will remain going towards the teal. Now the darker areas, they will not be affected too much. Okay, they will be a little bit more desaturated, and you're gonna see here that my blacks, now they look more natural. Okay, so I'm gonna revert back so you can see what I'm talking about. Pay close attention to the black areas, and if we bring this back the way it was, okay, look how the teal is creeping in the black areas. Okay, so this is how you do the teal and orange, but also keeping the black as black. So now that we finished the example here, achieving a teal and orange look, I'm gonna show to you how easily we can replicate the same look and feel to the other videos as well. If you click here and you do Ctrl C and you go to the other clip and you do Ctrl V, you're gonna see that all the 3 that we built with the color grading, it will be applied to the other video as well. Now you see the difference, right? This is original coming from the iPhone, and this is with the color grading that we just created. You see here the teal and orange in this area, and also in the sky, they are much more present. And the same you see here in the vector scope. You see that you have a straight line coming from the teal to the orange. Let's do a before and after, and keep an eye here on the vector scope how it looks like. Okay, so this is the original image from the iPhone. It's pretty much balanced. Okay, it's not bad at all. Now with the color grading that we just did before, but applied to the overall image, you see there is no skin here, but all the concept and everything that we changed applied to the image. So you can scroll here, you see that the color grading is all the way through the image. Okay, this was shot with cinematic mode, which looks very good, by the way. You see the blurred background and the foreground. The quality of the cinematic mode in the iPhone, it's incredible. It looks like a professional camera. This is another shot coming from the same movie, and I want to just replicate the teal and orange look that we created before. So I'm gonna copy and paste this teal and orange look on top of that image. Okay, so I'm gonna paste it here. You see here that the image is now looking much better. If I do a Shift D to show you how it was before, and this is after. Well, to my taste, I like the colors as it is. Okay, I like that the blues are being brought closer to the teal. Now, I do believe that the yellow part and the orange could be a little bit more towards orange, and we're gonna fix that. And another thing that I'm seeing in this image is that the blue and the teal colors, they are a little bit too much. And the same as you can see here in the graph, you see that the color, as they go towards the outside area, this is like the saturation levels. Okay, so it means that it's very, very saturated. So what we can do here in this case is tweak a little bit this image. Okay, so we can go and select the outside node, and let's reduce the saturation a little bit. Let's see. I think like this, and let's see if I do color boost. Let's do the opposite. Let's check the color boost. Saturation. Now I'm happy in reducing the saturation a little bit. Okay, so now I reduce the saturation, and the blue colors, they look a little bit more natural. So again, before and after. Now let's go back to the area that I believe that we can do some changes here in the yellow and the orange parts. I think that this can be a little bit more towards the orange. Let's see what we can do about it. So we click here on the skin, and let's see what is bringing. Now I know what is going on. Okay, so if you click here on the skin, we go to the qualifier again, and we can drag it a little bit towards to the right to catch more of the yellow. You see that now at the moment, these bars, they are saying that the color that is being selected is falling in between this range, okay, which is closer to the orange that you are seeing in this image. Now I want to grab a little bit of the yellow to do some changes towards the orange as well. Okay, so let's grab this a little bit more and grab the yellow as well. Let's see, like this, and let's see if you can do saturation. Yes, okay. Now let's have a look before and after. Oh yes, so now it's looking more the way I like. So it's creating a very hard color contrast. It's not a contrast with the brightness level, but it's a contrast with the colors. You see, still I think that the orange, it's a little bit too much. So let's reduce a little bit the saturation of this. You see here you have the saturation button. Let's bring it to 50 original. Okay, so now to my taste it looks much better. So let's do again before and after. So Shift D, it will bypass and disable everything. You see how the iPhone, I think, at least to my taste, it kind of navigates towards the green and yellow. You see, it's just a normal video, okay, that I made with the iPhone. I didn't change anything. This is the image coming purely from the iPhone. And you see here how it navigates towards the yellow, towards the green. And you see here in the graph as well, everything is sitting in this area towards the green. So that's something that took me to the color grade in the first place. I love the image quality of the iPhone, and I love cinematic mode. But the color science that they are using for the iPhones, it's not to my taste. It can be to your taste. You might love it as it is, so you don't need to do color grading at all. To my taste, it's not like, you know, the way I like it. So that's why I like to do color grading. So coming back to it, let's enable here the colors, and you see that now it's a very, very hard demarcation between teal and orange. Now, once you have all the clips graded in the way that you like, it's time to export. So if you are here in the color, then you just click in the lever, and you have here the timeline, and you can either select the clip that you want to export individually. Okay, so you can add in and out points. So let's say that here will be, I want to export only this clip. Let's say that you want to export this to utilize in Final Cut. You can export in Apple ProRes, which will keep the quality, and it's not so much compression applied, so you can keep it very close to what you just did without losing the quality. Then you just click here in add render to the queue, okay, and you click render all. So once this is completed and rendered, if you right click here and you click review in Finder, you're gonna see where the file is stored. Okay, so let's open it and you're gonna see that it's graded. So this is how you do color grading to your iPhone videos. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, give a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I see you in the next one.